What's up, guys? Today we're going to be going over the Warlord Spear, the new Iron Banner Arc Trace Rifle, and seeing if it's worth putting Iron Banner for this weapon in this video. So starting off with the vendor role, the vendor currently has Envious Assassin plus Detonator Beam, the new Trace Rifle perk. So is that the role you want, or is there something better on this weapon? So starting off with the left column with the vendor role with Envious Assassin. Envious Assassin, after getting 5 kills with different weapon and readying the Trace Rifle, will double the magazine. It can be procced twice, so the base mag with backup mag or whatever mag perk you really have can be a total of 104, double that to 208, and then triple it up to 312, which is obviously quite a lot of ammo in a single mag. And that's going to be pretty similar to Rewind rounds. Rewind generally has a lower total cap, but requires no setup. So with the base, 60% of your hits will be refunded, and then 70% with enhanced, but there is like a cooldown in between procs where there's going to be diminishing returns, and generally you're going to get roughly maybe like 200 bullets out of this perk. So overall, between those two perks, Envious Assassin is generally just better overall as long as you can get those procs in. Rewind is just going to be better just going straight to a boss, no setup at all. But overall, whichever perk you get kind of will be the same effect, and I don't think that there is a huge difference. You also have high impact reserves in the left, which is not the strongest damage buff in PvE. I don't know why it hasn't been updated or buffed throughout all these years that it's been out. But the damage increase only starts halfway through the magazine, and it starts off at 12% and scales to 25%. So over the entire magazine, it's only like a 10% increase on average. So obviously not great, but with it being in the left, it's kind of worth considering. So what could we pair those 3 perks with in the right? We'll start off with a new perk, Detonator Beam, which is on the vendor role. This one states dealing sustained damage creates an explosion around the target, triggers faster. So with the enhanced perk, which triggers faster, it takes exactly 20 bullets to proc the perk, and the explosion is going to be hitting for 10,600 on Carl, which isn't a lot, but compared to the base body and headshot damage of this weapon, it's actually going to be a net 43% increase for body shots and 32% for headshots on average with this weapon, which is pretty good for a damage perk that is also AoE ad clear. And kind of just comparing that perk to Connect Tremors definitely does more damage per activation, but generally it's going to take longer to activate, and there's going to be a cooldown in between activations. You can't start reproccing it until the current explosions are done. So while Connect Tremors does more damage per proc, you're going to proc it less often, and in the long run it kind of evens out. So honestly, this perk is pretty good. It's going to be doing more damage on average than most damage perks in the game, and offers a little bit of ad clear. So honestly, very, very good. So what else can we use in the right? A similar perk is going to be Jolting Feedback, where doing continuous damage will jolt the target, while amplified it will proc a little bit faster. This one proc roughly the same speed as Detonator Beam, but the explosions of the jolt do half the damage of Detonator Beam. But the upside is jolt is going to be better for ad clear and will stun overload, so definitely more utility out of that perk. But the weird thing about Trace Rifles is they're more primaries than they are specials. So while I usually like Jolting Feedback over Volt Shot on specials because you don't need a kill activation, on Trace Rifles, since they're more like primaries, I would actually prefer Volt Shot. So while it is the first Trace Rifle with this perk, and I think it's actually really good for champion gameplay, for general gameplay, I think you'll find yourself just killing stuff before it even procs. So what are the other damage perks you can use in the right? Well, we have Target Lock, which is going to be similar to High Impact Reserves, but it's going to start proccing right away. And this is going to cap out with the base perk at 40% and 45% with Enhanced. But over the entire reserves, it's going to be roughly a 25 to 30% increase. But if you pair it with something like Envious Assassin or Rewind, you're going to be getting to that 40-45% total increase and maintaining it for a lot of ammo. So this will definitely scale as you shoot more and more, and definitely outpace the increase of Detonator Beam. But the thing about Trace Rifles, if we look at their damage in DPS, and look at the rate of fire of 100 shots, their base DPS on a boss is 25,000. Obviously not good at all. Kind of showing what I was talking about, where Trace Rifles are more similar to primaries than they are specials. Even if we take high impact reserves and like Target Lock, the average DPS is 35,000, and with the peak of both perks, only 45,000. So honestly, they're not really great for DPS, or mostly for ad clear, and they got a buff 2 minors this season. And that is why Detonator Beam, Target Lock, and Jolting Feedback is kind of awkward on this weapon because all three of those perks take a while to proc. So when you're using it for Actor on red bars, unless you're doing like a GM or something like that, you're probably not going to proc really any of those perks. And that kind of leads me to not being a huge fan of this weapon, because a lot of the perks are more for single target damage, but these weapons aren't great for single target damage, so it's kind of this awkward perk pool. But honestly, I'm not a huge choice rifle user anyways outside of the exotics, so maybe I'm not the best person to really judge these zines, but in my opinion, I would just prefer, you know, incandescent, volt shot, some of those perks that are better for primaries that proc instantly compared to these ones that have delays. And the other perks we could use on it would be Desperate Measures or Killing Tally, both of which will be a 30% increase. Killing Tally will be really good, you just get 3 kills and you'll have it the entire mag, and combining that with Envious Assassin or Rewind, obviously you'll just have 30% for a very long time. And unlike Detonator Beam, where you have to hit 20 shots on a target to proc it, Killing Tally will just always be that 30%. And the final perk in the right you could use is 4 times the charm, but with it being on the right, and as we showed off with the DPS of Trace Rifles, you really can't afford to give up a damage increase on this weapon. If 4 times the charm was in left, that would be more usable, but giving up a damage perk just for 4 times plus, you know, Envious Assassin, while that is a very interesting role where you could probably shoot like 700, 800 shots in a row, half of which from thin air if you didn't miss, you're just gonna be doing like no damage and just tickling stuff with that combo. So I just wouldn't recommend that perk really at all. And before we move on to my perk combos and the roles I'd go for, I noticed a interesting bug, I'm guessing, right now with Detonator Beam. Detonator Beam seems to be proccing the bonus part of Volatile Marksman, where Volatile Detonations grant class ability energy. As you see in the first clip, I don't get chunks of my barricade back, but in the second clip, when I do have the boost active, I very clearly get chunks of my class ability back as if I was proccing Volatile Detonations. So maybe the detonations from Detonator Beam are coded in the same way as Volatile for whatever reason, and it seems to be working with that artifact mod. Or just something about this weapon is working with that mod. I'm not sure if it's Detonator Beam, just the weapon as a whole. I don't know. I'm just getting my barricade back way faster than I probably should be. So overall, is it worth playing Iron Banner for this weapon? Yeah, I would just get to rank 4 and take the Vendor role. And if there's a different role you do want, just turn in your 4 or 5 engrams and see if you get that role. If not, I would just move on personally. I think the Vendor role is pretty much as good as it gets. I personally like Envious Assassin more than Rewind. And really the only other role I would go for is just the same thing with Jolting Feedback for champion gameplay. I do think on paper something with target lock, either High Impact Reserves or Envious Assassin sounds good, but the DPS of these things just really isn't high enough for me to see myself really ever using that combo, so I would just stick with the 2 other ones I mentioned. Anyways, I think that's me it for the video. Let me know what you think about this thing down below. Like usual, thanks for watching. Catch you guys next time.